Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana.
With your host, Lee Barton, and co-host, Florence Myers.
We want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show. Today, we have some very valuable information on our upcoming election. And today we'll have with us, to share with us that great information is Mr. Russell Hollis. He's the Deputy Director of the Marion County Clerk's Office. So stay tuned and enjoy the information that you'll be receiving. It's very valuable. And I tell you, we're looking forward to getting this information from Mr. Hollis. Thank you very much.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read your Jerusalem Post too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
I want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline show. And as we indicated, we have a special guest today with some great information on voting. As we know, the elections are coming up and we need to get information out on access to voting for people that are print challenged and those that are blind. And today, our guest, Mr. Russell Hollis. He is the Deputy Director of the Marion County Clerk's Office. So welcome to the show, Mr. Hollis.
Thank you for having me.
There's so much to talk about, and you've been on our show before. And I want you to kind of lead us into how you guys prepare for voting and in the Marion County area. So there has been a new ruling from a federal judge that we want to talk about as well. So would you kind of lead us through how the process works, preparing your workers for the polls, as well as we'll get into absentee voting?
Absolutely. I'll first start with just the importance of knowing important dates and deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
I'll transition from there to voting in person, and then towards the end of my remarks, I'll talk about the court ruling, since that's probably something that's more on people's minds. It'd make it less likely for a person to forget if I mention it last. But in-person early voting has already begun in the clerk's office. It began on April 5th here in Indiana. So whether you're in Marion County or any other county, you've been able to vote early in person in your county clerk's office since Tuesday, April 5th. The last day to vote early in person in your county clerk's office is on Monday, May 2nd at noon. Again, it's at noon on Monday, May 2nd, the last day to vote early in person. And then Election Day. That's an important day to know. That is Tuesday, May 3rd from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you have an absentee by mail ballot, the deadline for the county election board to receive that ballot is 6 p.m. It's 6 p.m. Previously, that deadline was noon, but state law has since changed. It is now 6 p.m. Now, when it comes to voting in person in Marion County, one of the unique features about Marion County voting is that all of our voting machines are ADA compliant or ADA accessible. We use the Express Vote voting machine, which is a touchscreen voting machine, and it has unique features that are valuable to our voters who are blind. For example, you can use the Braille touchpad on the Express Vote voting machine to make your selections. You can also plug in headphones to the Express Vote voting machine, and the machine will read the selections on your ballot, and you can use the control pad to press enter, press up or down to make your selections. Another feature on the Express Vote machine is if you have difficulty seeing, but you are able to see the screen, you can change the contrast on the voting machine to make the machine darker. And you can even enlarge the text on the machine. So the Express Vote machine is pretty cool and valuable to use. That's the only voting machine that we use in Marion County. So there's no need to worry about voting in person and trying to find that one ADA compliant machine. That's all the voting machines in Marion County. One of the unique things about voting in person this year is that for early voting, we have what are called satellite voting sites. And a satellite voting location is a voting location that's outside of the county clerk's office. And this year in the primary election, there are 8 satellite voting locations. And that's the most that we've ever had in Marion County, more than any presidential election. So voting this year is going to be more convenient for our voters because they have a lot of opportunity on where they can vote. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that will reduce long lines, which will make your voting experience easier and more convenient and faster. I'll briefly read where those voting locations are. Of course, there's voting in the clerk's office located in the City County building, which is in Center Township, downtown Indianapolis. Then the satellite voting locations are, I'll go from like north to south, left to right. There's Pike Township. The Pike Township location is the Pike Library branch. The Decatur Township location is, I guess that's not exactly north to south, but the Decatur Township location is their Decatur Township Government Center. The Warren Township location is the Warren Township Government Center. The Franklin Township location is the Franklin Township Government Center. The Washington Township location is St. Luke's United Methodist Church. The Lawrence Township location is the Lawrence Education and Community Center. The Wayne Township location is the Thatcher Park Community Center. And the Perry Township location is the Perry Township Government Center. So that's 9 different voting locations that you can vote at before Election Day, 1 in each township in Marion County. That's the most that we've ever had. For directions on how to get to those voting locations or to get those addresses, you can go to vote.indy.gov, and all that information is there.
Well, that is some great information, and I tell you,
a lot of words too.
The express vote. I'd like to expound on that a little bit. That is a great machine. It does allow people like myself, I'm totally blind, to have access to the access and privacy. And it's an easy use of technology. So those that may be apprehensive, I would say, go there and learn the machine, and it'll navigate right through it. I really have enjoyed it. I enjoyed some of the upgrades, particularly with the speed of the voice. You can lower the speed, or you can raise the speed of the voice.
Exactly right.
I enjoy that because with the old apparatus, I tell you, there's a lot of complication because you had to sit there and watch paint dry before you get through the ballot. So I really have enjoyed that feature, and I'm sure that some of my peers and colleagues will as well.
Yeah, and you can adjust the volume of the voice as well.
So
one thing I did forget to mention, Mr. Martin, about the Express Vote is that it still uses a paper ballot. So there is a paper trail. The Express Vote machine, it doesn't tabulate any results, or it doesn't record any votes or anything like that. It's basically like a large iPad that serves as a printer. It's simply you insert a blank ballot into the machine. You use the machine to make your selections, and then it simply prints your selections onto the onto the ballot. And so you actually have an opportunity when you're voting in person to review your selections, make sure that what is printed matches with what you wanted to do before you insert that ballot either into the machine, to the optical scanner machine on election day, or into the ballot box during early voting.
Thank you so much for that information. And with that information, we're going to take us a short break, and we're going to come back with Deputy Director, Mr. Russell Hollis, for more information about this important upcoming election. Stay tuned.
With my failing eyesight, I'm not able to read regular newspapers, and I'm not able to keep up with obituaries.
I've been a homemaker all of my life, but since my vision has failed, I wish I could read my favorite magazines.
Have you heard of the NFB Newsline?
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And we're talking about voting today. And we're talking with the Deputy Director, Mr. Russell Hollis. Mr. Hollis, there's been a federal ruling for people with disabilities and blindness, in particular, or print challenge. Could you share with us information regarding that?
Absolutely. So in the court ruling, the court ruling put an injunction, or it stopped the requirement that an individual with a print disability that they personally mark their own absentee ballot when the ballot is sent by mail, fax, or email. And the court ruling allows any individual to assist the voter as long as that person that's providing the assistance is not the person's employer or union rep or or an agent of the voter's employer or union. So essentially what the order does is that it allows an absentee voter with a print disability to vote absentee by mail with help from another person. And what it avoids, what it struck down, is the requirement that those voters, that when I say those voters, I mean absentee voters with a print disability, it no longer forces them to use a traveling board. And a traveling board is this bipartisan team, a 2-member team that comes to the voter's home, and they'll provide a paper ballot to the voter, and they are in the room when the voter is making their selections. And if the voter had a print disability, either those traveling board members assisted the voter in marking his or her selections, or the voter had like a family member or a friend or someone help them, still in the presence of the traveling board members. And so the court struck down that traveling board requirement and said that it did not, afford the voter the privacy that traditional or that other absentee voters enjoyed. From our perspective, from an administrative perspective, what we do now to comply with that court order is that when we mail the absentee security envelope, we actually strike out the word, there's the word personally under the voters. There's this affirmation that's on the security envelope. And so we make sure that we strike out that word personally to avoid voter confusion. Let me find the exact language of that. So the way that security envelope looks is that it has the voter's name towards the top, but towards the bottom, just above the voter's signature, there's a statement that reads, "I also affirm under the penalties for perjury each of the following. I have personally marked the enclosed ballot in secret and have enclosed it in this envelope." Then there's some other words after that. But we're striking out the word personally so that voters know that, hey, there is a change here. And then for the general election, that word just will not be on the envelope at all. There's just not enough time for this election to remove that language from the envelopes. There's also a revision. The state has revised the absentee voters Bill of Rights. And so when you get an absentee ballot in the mail, you're gonna get the revised Bill of Rights. And then there are some traveling board forms that have been revised as well. And speaking of traveling board, I do wanna take a moment to let voters know that the first day that you can request a traveling board appointment was April 14th, and the last day that you can request a traveling board appointment, let me see here, is May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd, before midnight, 11:59 p.m. on Monday, May 2nd. The traveling board appointments must be during regular business hours of the clerk's office, which is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the traveling board and the voter, they agree on a time for the traveling board to visit the voter. And so that's pretty much the gist of the traveling board and how the court order impacted the traveling board appointments as well as voting absentee by mail.
Now, Mr. Hollis, if the voter requested the traveling board to come to their home and they requested the express vote, how does that work?
Glad you mentioned that. So typically when a voter requests a traveling board, the traveling board will bring a paper ballot and the voter will use a pen to mark their selections in on that paper ballot. But upon request here in Marion County, if a voter requests the express vote machine, which could be the case with a lot of print disabled voters, we will bring an express vote machine to that voter's home.
Okay. Now, there's also word out about absentee voting. Well, sort of, yes, with the using email or even fax. Expound on that.
Yes. So part of the court ruling from last month involved the issue of opening up the way that our federal, our military and overseas voters, the way that they vote, kind of opening up that process to absentee voters with a print disability. So though the military and overseas voters, and we call it UOCAVA voting, those voters have the ability to email their ballots to the county election board. And what the county election board does is they'll have a team on election day that will print, the emailed attachment, and the voting machine is not able to scan that attachment. So they recreate. There's a process to recreate those ballots using an express vote. And a bipartisan team does that to make sure that they accurately capture the voter's intent. The court order required a substantially similar process for absentee voters with a print disability to vote by email, fax, or even mail. And so it's my understanding that the state is still working through that. But in the meantime, they've opened up the absentee voting by mail process to no longer restrict voters with a print disability. So now that they can have any person assist them in voting absentee by mail, except for their union rep or employer.
Okay, so so the secrecy waiver, what is that all about?
The secrecy waiver is a form that's mailed with absentee by mail ballots. It's something that's required. It's something that's required when completing those mail ballots, because we believe in Indiana, we believe in the concept of a secrecy ballot. So that's basically what that secrecy waiver is ensuring that you're not being coerced, that you are voting privately when you're casting your ballot.
Well, there's so much to cover here, and we know the importance of it all. I know there's some concerns within the blind and print challenge communities about access and privacy and making sure that your vote counts. But individuals can contact the state board to make sure that their votes are counted, or if you're running into or encountering any problems with voting, they can contact the state secretary's office. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. They can contact the Secretary of State's office, and they can contact their county election board as well.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short pause and come back with the conclusion of our show with Mr. Russell Hollis. So we'll be right back.
I am a blind vendor, and one of the things that I truly miss is reading Vending Times magazine.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
It is a fantastic service.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
I want to thank everyone for joining us today with Mr. Russell Hollis, Deputy Director. And I just want to say once again, sir, thank you very much for sharing so much valuable information with us today. And do you have a parting comment that you would like to share?
Yes, I do. I do want to emphasize to all of our voters, and particularly our voters with a print disability or our voters who are blind, that our Marion County Clerk, Mila Eldridge, has done an outstanding job of just making it easier to vote. And this election cycle, I do want to encourage you to vote in person. We do have the most early voting locations that we have ever had. And all of our voting locations on Election Day, which is 182 locations, they will all have express vote voting machines. So there are voting machines that can help you, whether you need to enlarge the text on the screen or you need to plug in headphones for the machine to read selections to you. And you can make your selections using the control pad on the express vote. So if you want to vote in person, it's easier than ever for you to do that. And again, as the court ruling noted, you can vote absentee by mail. You can have someone help you with voting on the paper ballot, or you can use a traveling board and you can request to have an express vote brought to your home and you can vote that way.
Well, Mr. Russell Hollis, thank you so very much for your time and your expertise, and to our voters and to our blind and visually impaired and print challenged citizens. Please exercise your right to vote. You do have a voice and use that. So until we meet again on our next show, please take the time to hug someone, give someone some confidence and encouragement, and take care of yourselves. So God bless to each and every last one of you.
The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.